Too funny. Hang on one second. So if you have been here for a few moments, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm chuckling at myself. We're talking about perfectionism here today, and I thought that I had logged into the right Zoom account in the right Zoom meeting, and apparently they just informed me that I logged into the wrong one. What an amazing way to start a discussion about perfectionism. So let's dive right in. I'm going to repeat everything I said in the last one just so you can get caught up with me. Welcome to another edition of Paying It Forward from the Life Coach University. My name is Bryan Peterson, and I am a success mindset coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And I want to, first of all, this is brought to you by the Life Coach University and their Pay It Forward platform, where coaches from around the world, literally from around the world, have gathered to coach millions more. That's their motto here. We don't care how you pay it forward. We just want you to join in what I think is going to be the biggest ripple effect of gift giving the world has ever seen. And it starts with each one of us in our own community. It starts with you. It starts with me in paying it forward. You can share what you've learned today, help teach somebody, use it for yourself, buy somebody lunch, give somebody a hug, make somebody laugh, volunteer somewhere. We don't care. Just join us in making this the type of world that we want to live in. And with more joy, peace, love, action. And that being said, let's dive into today's subject. And once again, my name is Bryan Peterson. I am a success mindset coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And we are here to talk today about exercising your mental muscles and specifically talking around perfectionism. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it working for me, against me, and those type of things. But before I dive right into, I want to, if you have a question, there is a Q&A box on there. You can just type your question in the Q&A box. And hang on. I will get to it as soon as possible. I promise you that. I tend to talk fast. I talk with my hands. I get off subject. So if you don't understand something or you want to say something about what I have just said, please put it in there and let's share it. I also want you to be thinking about something in your life, in your personal story, in your life that you think you might show signs of perfectionism, or maybe perfectionism is working for you or working against you in some sort of way, and you're wanting to try to help facilitate it in a better direction. Let's get to the root of it today. So put that in the Q&A. So as I go along, be thinking of something in your life that you may be trying to be a perfectionist in, or something that maybe you're obsessing about, or something like that. And then we could share our own stories here. So let's dive right back in. Every time I do a presentation on here, I like to start with the definition. And I've got 3 different definitions of perfectionism today. So hopefully one of them resonates with you. The first one, and I'm going to read these just so I get them right, is a propensity for being displeased with anything that is not perfect or does not meet extremely high standards. I think we can all resonate with that being a perfectionist, we want to set extremely high standards, like it's got to be right. But here's my favorite one, is a trait that makes life an endless report card on our accomplishments and our looks. It even said, and our looks, like we're constantly grading ourselves. Like we're stamping an A on that, or maybe that's an A+, or that's a B-, or gosh, Bryan, that was a D. So it makes life an endless report card. I really loved that one. And the final one was a tendency to demand of others and oneself an extremely high or even flawless level of performance in excess of what is required by the situation. And I think this one also follows in there. Not only do we judge ourselves, but we're judging other people too. Like we see, like, oh, look at what you did or didn't do, right? But inherently in all of these things is the word judge, or is the thought behind it is a judge. And so that's going to come up repeatedly when we talk about some of this stuff. There's 4 different areas I want to talk about today. And in between them, I will be pausing for questions once again, so you have plenty of time to ask your questions. The first section is perfectionism even good or bad? Like, I want to elaborate on that because I'm not here to tell you one way or another. There's plenty of data and studies and things that I'm going to share with you, but you get to decide on your own. So is it good or bad? The next one is why, like, why do we do it? I'm not a psychologist, so I'm just trying to give you possible reasons why you may have perfectionism tendencies, why they've showed up in your life, and offer you that. Because when we understand why we do something, the how we try to counteract it or try to how to solve for it, it makes it much more, what I want to say, we understand the root of it, we understand the why, so the how makes it much more powerful, and then we have a deeper desire to do it. So I always like to share the why. The third section will be, how does it show up in our lives? Like, how do we know? How do I know if I'm being a perfectionist? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then probably the number one topic is going to be, how do I let go of it? Or how do I change my relationship with it? How do I make it a better part of my life? So those are the four sections. I'm going to pause really quick. Does anybody have any questions before we dive right in? Sweet. All right. So is perfectionism, is it good or bad? Is it good or bad? My first initial opinion was, I always saw my perfectionist tendencies as bad because they, in my mind, they caused me to not even start sometimes, or I wouldn't finish things because I wasn't doing them good enough. Or after I did it, I'd be like, man, that was just crap. And so I always saw it as kind of a negative thing. But what's really interesting to me is that according to a Harvard study, that said that perfectionism and the psychology of it is, although it's really complex, performance and perfectionism really have no correlation. In other words, perfectionism doesn't lead to better performance, and it actually doesn't lead to worse performance. So I thought that was really unique. And so I wanted to present that at the very beginning because it's a really kind of profound statement. But the next thing that really popped out at me, hang on one second. Somebody said, I'm keen to break my perfectionism tendencies. Let's talk about that too, because the next thing I'm about to share to you will kind of give you an idea of where you're at with them. And it will really give you an understanding of, is it helping me or hurting me? And this was something I found fascinating, not just in my own experiences, but when I started researching this in depth for this presentation, I discovered that there's two types of subcategories of perfectionism. And this was really astonishing to me. And one of them, they called it normal perfectionism or excellence-seeking perfectionism. Another article said it was adaptive, and another article said it was positive. So there's a positive side of perfectionism. And then the other category was what they called neurotic perfectionism or failure avoiding perfectionism, maladaptive or negative. So I want to refer to it as either adaptive and positive or maladaptive and negative to kind of give you an idea of the direction that perfectionism can take you. And the first category, the positive or the adaptive one, people had a tendency for high performance expectations, standards, yet they're not involved in the negative self-talk, that bad self-talk that comes with this. And I pulled some comments off of a Forbes article, and I just want to quote them here. These people, this type of perfectionist would say things to themselves like, I set higher goals for myself than most people, or I have extremely high goals. Another one was, other people seem to accept lower standards for themselves than I do. And then another one was, I expect higher performance in my daily tasks than most people. And what I noticed there was that this has a tendency to help them strive for perfection or for better achievements, but it also has judgment in there, like judgment of others. Like, look at me, I'm doing better than others, right? The benefits from perfectionism, which I'm going to go into here in a sec, were actually higher in this category. In other words, they experience the benefits a lot more, although they also had the detrimental ones as well, which we're going to go into too. So either category, I want to share this with you, either category had some side effects that we may want to consider when we're thinking about it. So this other subcategory, opposite of the positive one, which was the negative one, and this is people who have high standards for performance and expectations, but they've got a negative self-appraisal of themselves, negative self-talk, there's self-doubt, there's worry about making mistakes and all those kinds of things. They have a tendency to set really unreal expectations. And because of that, they fall short of it a lot and they fail a lot. And in the Forbes article, I want to quote some of the things that they said to themselves, which were, if I fail at work or school, I'm a failure as a person. Another one was, if someone does a task at work or school better than me, I feel like I failed at the whole task. Another one was, if I do not do well all the time, people will not respect me. And then another one was, the fewer mistakes I make, the more people will like me. So you can see where the second category has this more negative connotation, like getting down on ourselves, like I'm a failure if I'm not doing it right. And the other one is just like, I'm going to keep doing better, but I'm still judging other people. So neither one of them is like the greatest. The positive one, you have more of a tendency to experience some of the pros of it, whereas the second one, the negative one, we have more of a propensity to experience the detrimental effects, which we're going to go into here in just a sec. So I thought that was really interesting that there's actually two subcategories. One, perfectionism that drives us to achieve more, and one that drives us to not achieve more. I know I was in that category down here. I used to always think negative about myself. So anyway, what are the pros and cons? What are the pros and cons? The pros are people that are perfectionists tend to have a higher level of motivation, conscientiousness, ambition than non-perfectionists that tend to pay attention to the details and find catching errors. They do things like that, although they can be critical in that sense too. They have higher standards for everything. They say that they get more polished results at the end because they're paying attention to those details. Even though that Harvard study said that the results are neither above or below, there's a tendency to think that if I'm a positive perfectionist, that my results are more polished or they're better, the end result. They tend to go the extra mile. They tend to work longer hours. It can increase their level of perseverance. They can be great at things like school and work. People will look up to them, and they can be great at organizing. There's all kinds of things, but those are some of the major ones that stood out to me. And so those are some of the pros, like really good, like, you know, it just helps me catch errors and do things better and do things right. But the cons, this is where it really hit home to me, was higher levels of workaholism, as they called it, or anxiety and depression, stress and burnout and worry. And so both categories actually experience these. It's just the negative one, the ones who talk down to themselves, actually experience these even more. But I'm here to share with you that both categories experience these things. Hang on a sec, we've got a comment. It says, for me, striving to get something perfect causes a lot of stress, especially at my new job. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we may think that the perfectionism is helping us out, but the undue stress that it caused, this chronic stress, this emotional grip on us, as I like to refer to it, has a tendency to affect us in a negative way. It really kept me from just flowing and stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that. It absolutely does. I'm going to be sharing things later on, just so you know, on how we can actually embrace a little bit of perfectionism, but lose some of that stress at the end. So be ready for some of that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Where was I at? So there's a lot of overthinking, right? Plenty of unnecessary pressure. And I think this speaks to that. Like there's just overthinking. There's a lot of rumination in there that doesn't need to be going on. There's fear of not being able to achieve our goals, fear of failure. There can be, in my eyes, lower productivity, even though the studies said that they don't. I think in some people it does show up in lower productivity. For me, it was even getting started. Sometimes I wouldn't even get started, and other times I just wouldn't finish. I'd be like, it's not good enough. I'm done. It could lead to unhappiness. We're unhappy with ourselves. We're unhappy with our situation. Our self-talk, like we just beat ourselves up. We just talk crap about ourselves. It could show up with time management issues where we get like going off onto this, like I need to do this, this, and this. And then all of a sudden we look up, we're like, oh my God, that I spent 3 hours on just fine tuning this one detail that didn't even need that. So we could, time management issues could come up, which means sometimes we lose sight of the objective, like the big picture, because we get lost in these rabbit holes. So sometimes we could lose objective of the big picture. Comparing ourselves to others, I think, is probably the biggest one that shows up. One of my mentors and one of the communities I'm in calls it compare and despair. And I think that's so true because we start comparing ourselves, like, look at what Steve or Lisa's doing over there compared to what I'm doing. Ugh. And then we just start beating ourselves up. And so I think that's one of the biggest ones. And the way it shows up is that it just deflates us. It brings us that disappointment and stuff like that. So those are some of the pros and cons, some of the positives and negatives on perfectionism. I will let you decide after watching this whether you think it's perfectionism a good thing or a bad thing. I think it could go both ways. But I did come across something that I had to share in here that I thought, as I was going through the research, and it said, do you know what the opposite of perfectionism is? It's just acceptance. It's just accepting things. And I thought, wow, how amazing is that? So that's included with the final section on how do we overcome it, or how do we let go of it, or how do we embrace it. It'll be in that section there. So look forward to that. But before we go any further, does anybody have any questions? I don't see anything coming up. Okay, so let's jump in. Why do we do it? Like, why do I have these perfectionist tendencies? Why is it ruling my life? Why is it taking me over? Once again, I'm not a psychologist, and so I just want to share with you some of the root causes of it. You can decide on your own. I'm doing this because I want you to see that there's some of these reasons were just inherited or adopted when we were younger, and we can actually do something about them, but they also will help us in understanding the ways of combating it, because we know we're getting to the root problem. So the number one reason was basically our parents, or the way we grew up, our childhood. That negative perfectionism is often driven by fear of failure, low self-esteem, negative childhood experiences. And these, we might have had parents that set unrealistic expectations. They judged, they criticized, they did a lot of these things. I'm not saying that they were wrong. They just, that was their way of trying to get us to do better. They wanted better for us. And so they were highly critical. So that could have shown up there. It caused an undue internal pressure with us to avoid failure because we wanted to be accepted, like only, mom and dad or my authoritative figures were going to accept me if I do better, if I'm more perfect. So we started striving to do that. Here was one that really hit home with me, was excessive praise for your accomplishments. So if you had parents that were excessively praising you for, like, oh my God, Bryan, you did so well on that test. You're so smart. You're so smart. This is what I refer to as a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And so my parents used to tell me how smart I was. And so that reinforced a fixed mindset, which is just believing that I'm born with a certain amount of intelligence. There's not really much I could do to fix it. This is my abilities. I can't really do too much to expand it. That's a fixed mindset. And a growth mindset is, no, I can change that. I can learn new abilities and I can expand that. And there's neuroplasticity of the brain. And so I know I can expand these things. But what praising somebody for a fixed mindset and for certain of these things, what it causes us to do is to seek self-worth through our achievements. So look at my A I got on my report card, Dad. Look how good I am. Look at the gold medal I got on my science project. Look how good I am. And so it could, if we don't get that A or we don't get that gold medal, then we don't see ourselves as being good enough or value ourselves. So that's one way that, so one of the root causes of it. Another one is actually straight up mental health. So any mental health disorders like that can cause us to perfectionism. So sometimes it has something to do with that. So that's another factor. Another one is what I call turbulence in life or trauma. A lot of people refer to it as trauma, but I don't necessarily think that it has to be trauma. Maybe it's just turbulence. And anytime there's something that is going on in our life that's chaotic, we have a tendency to want to be in control. And we want to do things to prevent it from happening the next time. So like, if I could just control this situation, if I could just dot all my I's and cross all my T's, this is not going to happen again. And some of the things I'm referring to when it comes to childhood might be, moving around a lot as a kid and experiencing a bunch of new school systems, or your parents divorcing, or any of these things that might have caused some sort of chaos might push us in that direction of control, which means we've got to do things perfectly so that it doesn't happen again. So that's another way. We do have another comment here. Somebody said, as a parent, how can we offer praise without it leading to perfectionist tendencies? I think this is a great comment. Thank you for this. So you could praise them on their efforts. It's not praising them on how smart they are, but you could say, oh my God, Bryan, all that work, all that hard work you did, all that effort you put in, man, it really paid off. You did really well with that. That doesn't tell me that I'm smart or that I'm dumb. It just tells me that if I put some effort into it, I'm going to get either a good grade or something better is going to happen. And so we can praise the effort versus praising like whether you're smart or not. I hope that helped. There is a book out there by, her name's Carol Dweck, and it's called Mindset, I believe is the name of it. And she really gets into the details of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. If you are a parent on here, it is wonderful because it'll help you not only with yours, but it'll help you with your kids as well. So yeah, just praise them for their efforts. Just tell them, hey, great job on being curious. Just great job on, digging into that. That was fun. You made it fun. Things like that will help you with that. So thank you so much. That was awesome. I love that one. So another thing that could cause perfectionism might be black and white thinking. Either I did it good or I did it bad. No gray area in between. There's just a line down there. That was either good or bad. Black and white thinking leads to, there is no gray area in between to where I did some things good, some things bad, or anything like that. It's just either, man, I did it good or I did it bad. And so that really could lean towards trying to be perfect in these situations. Probably the next two are probably the two major ones, which is society and culture. Society's versions of what is good and what is bad, or if you grew up in a culture that kind of expressed that these are good things and these are bad things. And I think that ultimately one of the biggest things that we have as far as humans, one of our biggest needs is the need to connect, the need to feel loved, and to be a part of a community. This stems all the way back from our early days and trying to survive. It was much more beneficial to be a part of a community if you were trying to kill that woolly mammoth and get food than to be out by your own. And so if you were ostracized as in the community and kicked out of it, you wouldn't live on. And so we have just this need to be loved and this need to be connected. And so we adopt a lot of what our society or what's surrounding us. And this is going to show up TV, magazines. The biggest one now, social media. All over social media, you're going to see most of what I think people post on social media is like, look at how good I am. Look at how well I'm doing. Nobody wants to post like, look how sad I am, or look how bad things are going, although some people do. But the majority of what we see is everybody's doing so great. So what's wrong with me if I'm not doing well? And then that's where that self-judgment can come in. This can also show up in school, sports. There's all kinds of different ways in which that shows up. The final way that I want to share with you today is that it's our friends and our peers. Like, this is a big one, right? You're growing up as a kid, your best friend, Lisa, your best friend, Steve over there. God, look at how they dress. Look at how they did their report. Look how they did their science project. They did it so well. It was so organized. And look at all the acceptance that they get. And so in order for us to get that acceptance, we're like, man, I need to be better. I need to do this stuff. and do it just like them. I need to dress better and things like that. And so it shows up in a lot of those ways. I mean, because we want to be accepted in our, as young kids, it's so, I would just remember wanting to be accepted so much when I was a young kid. And so I just did anything and everything I could to try to fit in. So perfectionism ways are going to show up in there. It's going to show up in your siblings, your classmates, in groups. Like if you're in any groups, I know I was a part of the Cub Scouts, but any of these groups that have a hierarchy that say, oh, look, you've attained this level. Look at all the badges you have and stuff like that. That can lead to it too. And in the category of friends and peers, I didn't even think of this one, but in my studies and my research here, bullying came up. And when you're bullied, it's basically telling you that you're not good enough. It's a lot of shame, like you're not doing things right. And so if the clothes you're wearing, if our looks, if music that we like, we like to do, or our academic, our grades and stuff like that, if those aren't good enough, you might have been bullied into thinking that you need to do better or you need to perfect those things. And so bullying can really, really affect that. And that kind of hit home. I don't think I was bullied as a kid, but I remember bullying people and stuff. And so definitely that could show up into it as well. So those are some of the major areas and how and why we're perfectionists. And once again, I'm not trying to offer a complete psychological evaluation here. I just want to give you some points and some ideas as to why you might have some perfectionist tendencies. In my own experiences and my own studies, I think that the biggest thing that came up for me was what I like to call OPO, which is other people's opinions. And other people's opinions, that leads to fear of judgment. And that leads to judging ourselves, and we judge ourselves highly. But the ultimate thing in there is that word judge again. And so we tend to just judge ourselves highly when it comes to that. Hang on, I just noticed we've got a couple comments here. Somebody said, I can relate to what you just said. I look at the end result and judge it as good or bad. What I'm hearing from you is that I could look at my efforts or what I put in and not so much about the result. Thank you. I could just use this as an approach for my new job. Absolutely. Like ultimately, doing your best is going to change every day. If you are physically tired, your best at working out is going to change day by day. If you're mentally tired, your ability to study is going to change day by day. So that's a wonderful way to do it. Like I just put in the best effort that I could. That's going to help you with your self-esteem. That's going to help you with thinking you did enough good enough job. But there's also going to be less judgment in that. So thank you for sharing that. That was awesome too. And then we have another one. It says, ways parents can avoid instilling perfectionism in their children is model how you react or model places where you fell short. Your kids will hear how you talk to yourself and begin to internalize those statements towards themselves. That's a wonderful way. Praise effort. The learning has to come out of making mistakes, make what they did well. I love that one too. Catch kids doing or trying to do the right thing. Often we only notice or speak of when they're of what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah, all those are wonderful ways. Yeah, just promote the growth parts of it, the things that they can work on or that they can expand in themselves. I think that speaks highly to the fixed mindset and stuff. And yes, we do have a tendency just to say, this is what you're doing wrong. You need to fix it, as opposed to this is what you're doing right. So thank you for that share too. That was wonderful. So back to, I think where I was at was other people's opinions. I think it's just the judge. We judge others and we judge ourselves. I think that shows up highly in a lot of what we've inherited has come from our parents and society. Our standards and our goals and stuff like that have come from that. And so if we could work on the judge in us, that guy or that girl or whoever it is that's just talking to us, and we're going to go into that in the ways that we could help ourselves. So does anybody else have any questions? I need to take a drink of water here. I don't see anything new coming up. So in what ways does it show up in our lives? Like, how does it show up? How do we know? Am I being a perfectionist? Is it good? Is it bad? Or what's going on? I'm just going to share you some of the highlights of the tendencies uh, in different ways they show up in emotionally and physically in our lives. The number one thing to me is just obsessive thinking, like overthinking, just over ruminating and constantly thinking, what's the right way? What's the better? This could lead to lack of sleep. I know often people wake up in the middle of the night and going, oh my God, I could have done that better. Another way is avoiding. That's showed up a lot for me this way. I would just avoid doing things. It's like that old saying, if you're going to do it right. No, if you're going to do it, just do it and be prepared to fail at it, but just do it. But if you're going to do it right. Yeah, I'm learning how to do it right. So I avoided a lot of things. We failed to finish things. That's another way that it shows up. Judging ourselves, talking, if you're constantly berating yourself, like telling yourself that you're not good enough, that's another sign that it shows up. Guilt, shame, disappointment. If you're disappointed in yourself a lot, if you're feeling guilty for a lot of the things you do, that might be a sign of it. One of my favorites is, do I start, stop, over and over again? Because I'm always starting something and then I'm judging myself and I stop and then I'm like, no, you could do it. Give myself. So if you're starting and stopping things a lot, that might be a sign. If you're feeling like you're always missing something, there's a missing link or a missing key to something. I just saw my cat. Hi. Oh. You're lucky to be blessed with Arya today if she jumps up here. But if you're always feeling like you're missing something, hey, that could be a sign. Thinking that like there's something else to add to make myself feel better. So that's another one. Always thinking you're not good enough or wanting to be better. Trying to control everything. If you've got a control thing, like you've got to have control of every situation, that might be another sign. Like I said, not liking yourself, obsessing about the future. This was another one too. Like, if I don't do this perfectly and if I don't get this job, then what's it going to mean about my future? But on the opposite side, man, if I do get it and if I do it perfectly, what's going to happen that's good? So obsessing about the future might be one of them. People pleasing is sure another one. God, if I do this really well, they're going to like me, they're going to accept me and something. So it shows up a lot like that. Here's some of the major ways I think as far as feelings go and our emotional side of it. And I think this affects both, whether you've got like a positive perfectionism or a negative perfectionism, is anxiety disorders like social anxiety or panic disorder or social phobias, acute or chronic stress, depression, fear of failure, impatient, frustration, any of these things. The perfectionist thoughts in us tend to exacerbate those things. They make them worse. We become hypercritical. It can invoke feelings of emptiness. And for me, this was that I was missing something. There was a missing link, but we could just feel like if you are doing the compare and despair type of things, you're always just thinking, what am I missing? Like, and it makes you kind of feel lonely in a way. There's a tendency to think, I still haven't made it. So if you're experiencing any of those things, you may have some perfectionist tendencies and you just might want to explore those. Here are some of what I call the perfectionist traps. Is the comparison trap. We talked about this before, the constant focusing your attention on what somebody else is doing, or as opposed to focusing on yourself and what you're doing and comparing yourself to just what you did the day before. There's the fear trap and always thinking that, will I succeed or not? And from that fear comes the self-sabotage trap, which is, God, I'm not going to do this right. I never do anything right, which leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy saying that, God, I never do it right. I never do it right. And next thing you know, you didn't do it right. And then that leads to what I refer to as, everybody knows, the imposter syndrome, which is you're constantly doubting your abilities. And I used to do that as a coach a lot. I used to see all these coaches out there doing these wonderful, amazing things, explaining it in all these different ways, until I finally realized that I had a wealth of knowledge and stuff. I'm just going to share it in my own way with my own analogies, and somebody is going to do that. So it could lead to all those traps. I hope that helped out and understanding if you've got some of these tendencies or not. We do have, it looks like, another question or a thought. I worry that if I don't strive, then I won't progress far enough, but maybe I'm missing just being present with where I am. How can I stay more present? This is awesome. One of the things that we think that we have to be a perfectionist is, if I'm not a perfectionist, then I'm not going to grow. I'm not going to expand. I'm not going to achieve my goals. And you hit on one of the ones that we need to do to help with it, which is being present. And I'm going to share some of that when we get down to, which is the next category, how we're going to let go of it. And that's actually one of my favorite parts about it. But thank you for saying that. Yes, there's this giant worry that if I'm not a perfectionist, I lose my desire. And if I lose my desire, then I'm not going to go anywhere. And I'm going to stagnate. And I think that's the truth. We could lose the attachment to the result, like this attachment to it, like, I've got to get it, I've got to get it. But we could still have the desire. We could still have the curiosity. We could still foster those flames, but lose attachment to getting the result and just saying, hey, what happens if I do this? God, I really want to see what it's like over here. I desire to see what this outcome is like and try something, and then just get curious and go, wow, that's what happened, as opposed to, dang it, I didn't get those results. And now I'm pissed, or now I'm judging myself. But wonderful, wonderful. I appreciate that one. God, you guys are killing it today with the questions and thoughts. So I'm going to take another drink. Any other thoughts or questions before we go into the favorite part on how we can process it, how we can embrace it? Okay. So probably my favorite part is, how do we let go of it? Like, how do we let go of our perfectionism, or more, how can we have a better relationship with it? I like that better, because perfectionists can benefit us, right? So how can we have a better relationship with it? How can we learn to embrace it in a way that doesn't have these detrimental side effects, like the anxiety, the chronic stress, and those things? I got a list of stuff here that's going to help you out. I've got some of the actual mental muscles that I help teach people to exercise so that they can do this. But the number one way, and to your last one, being present, is mindfulness and awareness. That's the first one. Unless we know, like, just being mindful or being aware of, God, this is causing me stress, or that I'm judging, or that I'm comparing, or any of these things, we're not going to be able to solve, and we're not going to be able to get past any of it. So just being mindful in the first place, just being in the present moment, just rubbing your finger, being in the now. What does it feel like? What sounds? Bring yourself to the present moment, and then being aware of, God, I'm feeling anxious about it. I'm feeling like I'm not doing it right. And then from there, we could take different actions than we would as, let's say, if we were overwhelmed and just driving this way. The second one is self-compassion or self-love. When we learn to exercise that mental muscle and have more compassion, like figure out a better way to talk to ourselves than demeaning ourselves all the time, have love for ourselves, then we can avoid that compare. We can avoid those different things that are causing us to feel ashamed and guilty and stuff. And then we could just go into, like, doing what's in front of us. And part of that self-compassion has to do with the next one, which is positive self-talk, which is how you speak to yourself. You can challenge your inner critic. You can challenge that guy. If the inner critic is yelling at you, I call that an unserving thought. It's not serving you in any way. Our thoughts aren't either true or false. They're just our thoughts. And so if you have a thought that's not serving you, then you can challenge it and say, I don't want to think that way. But at the same time, I would avoid toxic positivity, which is, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. That's why I think positive affirmations don't work, because we just don't believe in them sometimes. When your inner critic is saying you're not doing a very good job, and then you're trying to switch that into, I'm great, and you really don't believe that, your body's not going to be in alignment with that. And so you're not going to, like, follow that. So you really have to be careful on what you what you shift your thoughts to be. One of my favorite ones that I shift to when the judge in me is just beating me over the head is like, you know what? I may not be doing it good right now, but I can learn. I've got the same cells. I've got the same arms and legs. I got the same, all these different things as every other human out there. I got the same, there's resources. So I can figure it out. I could try, I could do things to learn to be better. And that serves me better than you're not doing a very good job. This sucks. You're never going to amount to anything. It serves me better. So you could challenge your inner critic. That's another one. You can certainly reframe that story. So if it's not just the inner critic that's saying you're doing bad, but there's a story that's attached to it, and you're always doing the what if. I call them the what if spiral stories. Like, what if it goes bad? What if it doesn't work out? What if I get a bad grade? I call those the spiral down stories. If you catch yourself in those, you can always do a what if spiral up. Either story is just a story. And it's just you accepting it as a story. So you can spiral up. Like, what if something good happens? Like, what if I just do a good job on it and amazing things happen? You can certainly reframe that story. So that's another thing. Acceptance. We talked about this. This is the opposite of perfectionism. And I think this is probably one of the bigger ones here, is just acceptance. Like, I'm accepting where I'm at, what I'm doing in the thing, or in the moment that I'm in. I don't have to accept that story that I was just telling myself. I could accept just the facts that are going on. I could stop giving energy to that crappy story, and I could create a better one instead. I like to refer to what I call the big three in the muscle group, the mental muscle group, which is acceptance, gratitude, and letting go. And when you use all three of those in combination with each other, you can release what I've referred to as, and what a lot of people call, the resistance that you're experiencing, or something that you feel is holding you back, keeping you stuck in prison, or what I like to call the grip, like when it's got that grip on you, like you're just sitting there like, God, I want to do something, but it just got that grip, right? So if you use acceptance to begin with, just accept your circumstances as they are. Like, this is what I've got in front of me. This is what I've done. It may not be the best, but it's what I've done. And you can find gratitude in any of it, like real gratitude, not just like I'm thankful for dinner or a roof over my head, but real gratitude where you go deep into, like, I'm thankful for what I have and what's going on. That gratitude is going to give you the energy to actually let go of that resistance, and then you can let go of it. And it's like when you experience it, it's just, you'll feel it. It's like a release in your body. Your shoulders will be way up here, and all of a sudden they'll just sag down. And then from there, you could actually just start moving forward again. So that's one of the biggest ways acceptance is huge. Another way that you could do is you could just simply change the way you set your goals. Stop setting your goals so high. There's tons of techniques out there. The one I'll reference right now, because I think it's the most talked about one, is the SMART goals, the SMART goals. So you can just change the way you do your goals. Another way that can help you out is find the good in the bad, so to speak. So in every failure, I promise you, in every failure, there's something that went right. There's something you did right. So find it. Just find, what worked well. This requires you to be present in the moment at all. It also requires curiosity, like you were when you were a kid, and just start going, wow, I wonder, why this happened in this way. And then you can explore the ways of having fun with it. So that's another one. Hang on a second here. It looks like we've got another comment. Somebody said, I would have spiraled down, and it usually is, what if it goes home and finds out? The spiral down is automatic and fast. Damn, you nailed it. It is. It's automatic. It's fast. You have trained your brain to go, what if it goes bad? That's all you've done. You've literally, the progress throughout your life, you trained your brain to say, in every situation you encounter, what if it goes bad? What if it goes bad? What if it goes bad? That's why I used awareness and mindfulness as the first tool. Just be aware of it. Oh, there I go again. What if? And right now you can even say, there you go. The judge is telling me that we're spiraling down again. You can separate yourself from that inner critic. And so it's not your voice. You ever notice that that inner critic is your voice, and that's why it's so powerful? Give it a different voice and just saying, oh, the judge is telling me that we're spiraling down again. But yes, it happens so fast. You're thinking, your habitual ways of thinking are the same as your habitual ways of doing anything. Like the way you dry off when you get out of the shower is the same. So is your same way of thinking. But that's a huge one. Yes. Be aware of it, notice it. And then the next time, offer yourself, for every one spiral down story, try to offer yourself 3 spiral ups and see what it does. I promise you that if you do that enough, it's going to change. Your automatic tendency is going to actually be to start spiraling up. So great. Thank you. The next way is learn to embrace failure as a part of life, an integral part of life. Failing Forward, there's a book out there called Failing Forward by, I can't think of his name right now, Maxwell, I think, something in there, but it's a highly book I recommend. After I read that book, I changed my perspective on failure. In fact, I don't think that we could ever progress, ever expand, ever get better, ever do anything like that unless we experience failure. Like, we are goal achieving machines. The way you learned to walk as a kid, like, you didn't focus on all the failure. You used the failure like, oh, I did that and I fell down. Your mind said, I'm not going to do that again. Except for us now, we look at it, we're like, oh my God, look at what I did. Look what I did wrong. And then we repeat it. Whereas just look at failure and say, learn what I could do differently. And that's where the evaluation I talked about. Oh no, that one's coming up next. We can evaluate. Like, we could increase our ability to adapt. So we could properly evaluate things, take the emotion. I did a whole nother presentation for the PIF Talks on this, and you can go back and look it up, but it's on evaluation. What I did well, what didn't work, what could I do differently? How do I put them all back together into a new plan? How do I take the emotion out of it? And then how do I move forward? So we can learn to evaluate. That's another great one. Looks like we got another question here. It says, my inner critic are my parents too. Yeah, like, they judge us a lot. I remember bringing my report card to my dad all the time, and I got almost straight A's. And my dad would be like, why is that an A minus? Why is that an A? Why is that a B plus? Why is it not an A? And I was thinking to myself, dang, I thought these were good. I guess it wasn't good enough. So the story that I told myself was, I'm not good enough. I reframed it now, and I look back and I just said, you know what? My dad didn't know how to try to inspire me to be better, because he was just dealing with what he dealt with from his parents. But my dad loved me enough to try to inspire me to be better, and that was his way. So yes, our parents can be inner critics too, only they're loud, right? But thank you for sharing that, for sure, for sure. Another way, and going back to, it may be a mental health thing, you can seek professional help. If it is something like OCD or another mental health thing, there is professional help out there. So you can seek that as an avenue. The next one I just made up on my own, which was have a sense of humor. I will laugh at the time. I don't care if you're laughing at me, with me, or whatever, as long as we're laughing, it feels good to me. But if we can learn to laugh at ourselves like a true kid, like when you were kids together and somebody messed up on something and you just laughed together and you walked away best friends, if you could have that, it's going to take the judge out of it. It's just going to tell yourself, you know what, I mess up sometimes. In fact, messing up's kind of fun. Look how fun it was. Look how we laugh. But create a sense of humor about it. The next two are a couple of my favorite mental muscles I like to teach. The first one is take the garbage out first. In one of the groups that I'm in, one of the coaches said something about taking the garbage out first. And you're asking, Bryan, what is that? Let's take the garbage out first. And it is basically inherently, no matter what we do, when we first do it, we're not going to do it well at first. It's not going to be that good. I don't care if you're gifted or not. When you first do something, it's not going to be good. So what they were referring to is you've got to take the garbage out first. You've got to clear it off so that the good stuff rises. So if we could work on taking imperfect action and just taking that garbage out, just getting past it, then the good stuff is going to come up. So learn to just take action. Like there was a story that I heard one time where a photographer, a A professor of photography had half the class. He said, your grade is going to be based on quality. You need to turn in quality photos. And the other half is going to be based on quantity. And you know what happened at the end of the semester is the people that turned in the quality, they didn't have quality photos, as quality as the people that took the quantity, because the quantity took picture after picture and they realized, or look at the lighting that this does. And they took so many photos, they took out that trash first, they got to the better photos. I don't know how he graded them, and I'm not saying that quantity is better than quality, but quantity could lead to taking the trash out first and lead to quality. We don't figure it out unless we go out there and do it. So don't be afraid to take that trash out first. Learn to exercise that muscle in your brain. And the way we do that is we exercise what I call the FOPO muscle, which is forget other people's opinion, not FOMO, fear of missing out, but FOPO, forget other people's opinions. We need to learn how to realize that we don't know what else is going on in anybody else's side of the field or what's going on. I don't know what they brought to the table. I see this a lot in the coaching industry and in any other industry. It's like, look at that guy. We both read the same book and he is way up here and I'm way down here. Why? I don't know what he brought to the table or she brought to the table. Like they may have had more experience than me. They may have been further along in their personal development than me or whatever. But if I could switch that out and I could tune out what other people think of me, which is a lot of self-love and self-compassion, then I could just focus on me and I can compare myself to me. We don't, let's see. Yep. So those are the ways in which we could do it. We're running out of time here. So I just want to share my final thoughts and then I'll open it up for some more questions. But my final thoughts are, we live in a microwave society. We want things now. We want things in an instant. Turn on Netflix. Give me the whole series now. Oh, and let me boop, 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 get my popcorn in 1 minute. Now I'm sitting down. Our apps on our phone are designed to do all kinds of things for us in an instant. Instant weather, instant this, instant that. But you know what you can't microwave? Your personal development. You can't microwave. You can't learn to sit with your emotions and just let your emotions be there without judging them, without suppressing or repressing them, without judging them. You can't just sit there and learn to be comfortable or uncomfortable, sorry, and just let that be there and accept that. You can't do that in an instant or a day or a week or even a month. Sometimes it takes years. But I will tell you this, when you can step into those things, the journey along the way just becomes so much better. Life wasn't meant to be this all joy and no pain thing. There wouldn't be any joy if there wasn't any sadness. It's meant to be experienced. And so those are my thoughts on it. I thank you for coming. We've got another, somebody said, oh, laughing at me, laughing with me, laughing for me. I love this. Thank you. Yeah, that's the way I was as a kid. That was one of my ways of being accepted, by the way. Was if I can make people laugh, then I felt like I was accepted. But now I just think it's fun. Humor is so much fun. And then one more here is, I love this talk. I got so much from being here. Thank you so much. No, thank you for showing up, but I'm going to receive that. You're welcome. This has come from a lot of my experience, fear of what other people think of me, and all these different things, fears of failure, my own dealings with perfectionism and stuff. And I just thought this would be a great way to help you understand that it's not really good or bad. It's just how we let it serve us, the direction that we let it take us. So any other questions? We've got like a couple more minutes before I got to sign off. Does anybody have anything else to add? This has been a good one. This was good. I think we got one more. Hang on. I'm definitely going to rewatch this one. Yay, I love that. Yeah, it'll be on there for you. I hope you catch a lot out of it too. So anyway, once again, for all of those of you that were here, I just want to honor you. Way to step up, way to invest in yourselves. If you're showing up later on and you're watching this on replay, you're amazing too. I want to honor you all. Once again, my name is Bryan Peterson. I am a success mindset coach with Achieve, Grow, Succeed Coaching. And this was brought to you once again by the Life Coach University and their Pay It Forward platform, where coaches from around the world have come to coach millions more. We don't care how you do it. Just Help us create the biggest ripple effect of gift giving the world has ever seen. And it all starts with each one of us. Just pay it forward, volunteer somewhere, help somebody out, give somebody a hug, make somebody laugh. We just want you to join us in making this the type of world that we all want to live, which is, in my opinion, one filled with more peace, joy, love, and meaningful connection. And we had one last comment on here. I like the microwave society metaphor. I want to hear more about this. It is. We just want our results right now. Like boop, boop, boop. Where's my results? That's why I call it the microwave society. Anyway, this has been amazing. This has been another edition of Paying It Forward with the Life Coach University. You all have an amazing day. I love you all. I will see you next month in the next edition. For me, anyway, there's plenty more out there. Check them out. There's tons of excellent coaches on here helping out. I love you all. Bye-bye.